question?
Sure.
So I'm pretty sure you've talked about this before, but could you say again what this tradition says that happens when you die, and then also how doing practice changes or affects that?
Mm-hmm. So the best analogy to when we die is, well, one analogy that sort of covers part of it is a wave in an ocean. That a wave arises out of the ocean and then it subsides back in. It goes back to a less conditioned state. When the wave arises, it is in a more specific form and it's conditioned to behave in a certain way. In other words, a wave can arise and it can crumble in a certain way and it can come down, but it can't start leaping out of the sea and, dancing around the sky. It has certain conditions put on it by virtue of having that particular form, right? So we arise like that out of unconditioned consciousness and energy. And then when this little wavelet passes on, it goes back into the less conditioned ocean of consciousness and energy. So that's one way of thinking about it, or having an image for it. Another way is by thinking about karma. So karma means activity, but specifically it means what kind of activity? Bound activity. So activity that is compelled to repeat itself. It's energy and consciousness that has momentum through time. For instance, smoking cigarettes, right? When we have a habit like that, or eating certain things, or relating in certain ways, we always get angry when such and such happens. Those are compulsions in a sense, but really what they are is patterns that have momentum. So we ourselves in this form are kind of like a yard sale of those different patterns. We're sort of a jumble sale. We have all different, I like the Britishism jumble sale, just kind of makes more sense for this teaching. But we have lots of different patterns that come from lots of different places that have sort of assembled temporarily to create this experience. And some of those patterns have more momentum and some of those patterns have less momentum. When we establish a very, very strong pattern, such as doing sadhana every single day, you are a very young person. If you decided to do meditation or mantra or some combination of things every single day from now until you die, and you live to be 80-something years old or 90 years old, that would be decades and decades of that, what is called samskara, that pattern that you have sustained over all that time. Someone might have a pattern of being nasty to people, or a pattern of being sad. But whatever patterns are strongest, they are going to continue, their momentum is going to continue beyond the dissolution of this form. So there's no soul, but there are patterns that do survive and have desire just like we do. When we do spiritual practice, what we're doing is we're kind of unifying our patterns in one direction. We're creating what are called samskaras of sadhana, and we're unifying our desire and our activity in one direction. And the idea is that at the very least, if we do a lot of practice and we have a strong desire, that when we are dying, we will be able to do something like mantra as we are dying, even if we're in pain or something is happening. So the idea is that even if we are distracted by pain or illness of some kind, or whatever we might be distracted with when we're dying, that we will have formed such a strong pattern of sadhana, particularly mantra is good for this, because it's easier, that it will just spontaneously occur to us to do this as we're dying. So that would be, and then that would sort of carry us into a different situation when we're in the bardas of death, the interim states. In the best possible circumstance, which is very, 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 very difficult to achieve, I think, we would have a certain kind of recognition of unconditioned primordial nature. It's called the clear light or the clear mother light. And we would have enough experience of recognizing that through our sadhana in this life, that we would also recognize it in the bardos of death. And we would be able to kind of move past all the distractions that are in the bardos, according to the people who profess to know about these things. I'm not one of them. I'm just reporting to you that in the bardos, according to both Buddhist and Indian traditions, there are energetic apparitions that arise that are made out of our own karmic patterns. And we can get attracted to these things and sort of go off into some other lifetime, or some little piece of us goes off. But if we can recognize our teacher, or remember to do mantra in the bardos, or remember to seek our teacher in the bardos, or recognize the clear mother light in the bardos, then we can have some kind of more extraordinary rebirth. So these are the teachings in a nutshell.
Well, okay. So when you say rebirth, you're saying that we're kind of spread out.
That's right.
So rebirth is not even really a rebirth.
Well, it's rebirth is an experience. So we couldn't really say exactly what it is, but the more unified your desire is in this life, the more possibility there is that there will be some sense of continuity in some other being after you die. For instance, the reincarnated lamas, who many of them have memories of other lives that they led. They were not the same people, they don't remember everything, but there's some kind of throughfare, some kind of thread that relates to their sadhana, right? That relates to the teachings they received. So that's what we're really hoping might happen, that we will establish that thread strongly enough that someone, not really us per se, but someone with whom we share an experience, can continue benefiting from the practice that we did in this life. And it's not that unusual to have memories of other lives. Even if you're not a reincarnated lama, I can tell you this from personal experience. If you do sadhana, or just if you're anybody who happens to have this experience, even without doing sadhana, then you can have memories of other lives. It's really hard to say what they are. I mean, it's hard to, when I have such memories, I don't make any hard and fast claims about them, but I know they're related to this somehow, right? And they've informed this incarnation somehow. Just like our ancestral DNA does, right? Our karma is like subtle DNA.
Okay, one last
Sure.
little question. So are you saying then that the ocean is made up of karmas, I guess?
No, that was just a different kind of a metaphor.
Okay.
Yeah, that was just one kind of a metaphor that was talking about being less conditioned and more conditioned. Once we come into form, we're more conditioned than when we're more in a formless state. Okay, so that was what that was about.
But you're saying when you come back though, you're bringing whatever, if
Right.
you do practice every day, you're bringing that sort of energy back to it, as opposed
Right.
to
Where the ocean and wave fits in with this bardos thing is that in the bardos, you're not as conditioned by this form. There is less form. And so there's more possibility to realize or take a different direction than when you're very conditioned by being in this kind of a form. So that's why the bardos between life and life, aka the bardos of death, actually this is called the bardo of life, but when we're in the bardos of death, we aren't as conditioned as we were. And so we can have more opportunity to realize, if we have trained in this life, we have more possibility when we're in the bardos, because like ocean, we're less conditioned than a wave. But that doesn't mean the ocean is just a jumble of karmas. I wasn't trying to say that. I was using two different sets of descriptions to talk about something.